This hero is fun, really fun. It might be the most fun dueler in the entire game, but as usual, there's still very evident problems that need to be fixed, but I'll go into that later. And the first thing I want to talk about is the openers. I think these are the best, most fun openers in the game. Pretty in line with Kensei actually, except Kensei's light soft feints are terrible. Unusable. These are not. They're unreactable, and I was afraid that light soft feints were gonna get overshadowed by the kick, but unlike the kick, you can actually continue into the full guard, making them very safe. Which, considering these lights deal 9 damage, it's clearly very strong, but in a good way. The kick guarantees a 14 damage light, so much more damage, and this light counts as a finisher, so the only thing that you can really do afterwards is go into the dash mix-up. Which is kind of restricting, but in a way, it does balance it all out. I mean, the lights deal low damage, but are very safe, and let you continue the soft feints. And the kick is a bit more risky, but it's a bash and deals more damage and acts as a combo finisher. I'm not a fan of this restriction. I think it makes the character feel limited and a little bit clunky, but I do like the balance aspect of it. And these soft feints are not your only opener, as you can also whiff a backstep light into the all guard, into all the other abilities, including the unblockable. And this unblockable deals 30 damage, but to get to it you need to do at least 2 moves prior, being the light or heavy into the all guard into the stab. This makes it take longer than the average slide into unblockable, which is a very creative way to include what would otherwise be a very average and overdone type of mix-up. So, just for fun, let's count the openers. Heavy into light, heavy into kick, supported by a heavy into heavy, backstep into running dash, and out of the running dash you can light, which is 400 ms, zone, which is 500 ms, enhanced and deals more damage, and finally, bloody wrath, the unblockable. And that's not even mentioning all the soft feints that you can do from the running attack, or roll catcher, whatever you want to call it, which, yes, this counts as a heavy, so you can also soft feint from it. Meaning that you can try to go for the roll catcher, then soft feint into the running dash, dodge forward out of the running dash, and do the roll catcher again infinitely. Very, very cool. I also want to commend the identity of this character being done right. Sabers are not really heavy weapons, they're meant to be nimble, that's why her main method of attacking is soft feints. And again, because sabers lack weight, the only unblockable at her disposal is a stab that you can imagine would go through the enemy's guard, unless they actively parry. She is a girl wearing mostly leather, and some chainmail, so the only hyper armor ability that she has is a zone punish. Makes sense. You can see how the mix-ups fit the character and are done in a creative way, unlike the average unblockable or orange-blue mix-up. More of this in the future, please. And finally, as stated in my other video, the tier 1 is a perfect example of what a feat in this game should be. Fun, fair, possibly realistic, and in character. So now let's talk about the running block. And first of all, it is a full block deflect, which is a mix of 2 previous existing mechanics blended into one. This feels fresh. And if you think about it, a deflect mode is strictly worse than a 360 superior block because, unlike the latter, it doesn't actually stop the enemy from continuing their attack, not even light attacks. Meaning that if she isn't careful, she will get punished. And punished she will. Because fighting enemies that have hyper armor in their kit is a living nightmare. It is actually unbearable. Because the developers decided to make a character that is very complex and hard to play. Right? Makes sense. We love that. The problem is, almost every other character in this game plays so dumb that they can just light heavy, and if they happen to have hyper armor, it just invalidates all my 300 IQ mix-ups. I can be playing with distance from far away, like doing heavy into running dash, and then, oh, but he's going to light attack me at the end, so I'm actually going to dodge out of the running dash so I can deflect the incoming light, right? And then I get it, and I get a punish. But oh no, wait, the enemy has a hyper armor heavy attack. So, you know, all the reads that I just made, to the trash, they don't matter, the enemy wins. This is unbearable, and it happens so many times, and characters with dodge bashes like Conqueror, Shugoki, or Lawbringer just invalidate this entire character again. Because anything that you do, including heavy into heavy, which theoretically should catch dodge attacks, for some reason, they don't catch these dodge bashes. And all the mix-ups that you do from your full block stance also get invalidated by the enemy mindlessly dodge bashing unless you feint into neutral and then try to dodge attack, which should be their counter, right? I am being put in the defensive when I'm attacking if the enemy has a dodge bash or a hyper armor ability. And this is just terrible. You can't have a character that is actually really fun, and complex and deep and all that in a game where every other character just presses light, heavy, dodge, bash, and they just win. Okay, you can't have that. It is atrocious. It is so annoying. I was having actually so much fun the first time that I was playing her in duels, but the second that I went into Dominion or Breach and I fought a Shugoki, it's over. It is so boring and infuriating how the enemy can just ooga booga, light, heavy, bash, heavy, and they win. It's ridiculous. And I'll go into how to fix this later. But anyway, one thing that you can do that's actually pretty funny is if the enemy's heavy attack is slow enough and you don't know if he's gonna throw a light or heavy, you can parry on light timing and then soft feint into the running dash and you will actually get a deflect if it turned out to be a heavy. It's that fast. Of course, the enemy can just guard breaks, but that's kind of the mix-up. Whether the enemy can guard break you or not will depend on their hit stun, paving the way for a lot of interesting interactions to be had, and considering that you can also dodge out of the stance, I'm not even going to attempt to explain all the things that you can do with this. There's a lot of hit stun intricacies and cool property interactions that you have to really think about. Again, if the enemy didn't just have hyper armor and press light heavy. Although I will say that because you can dodge forward out of it, you can try to roll catch and dash again for a theoretical infinite run, much like a Pharah and Orochi. And when I found out about this ability, I was like, oh damn, that's so cool, I feel smart now. And in general, playing this character, I was fumbling my inputs a lot. And even now, I'm like, wow, I tried to feint my heavy into a parry, but I'm just now realizing that I could have soft feinted into the full block, which is faster, and I would have won that interaction, or hell, if I just dodged out of the full block last second, I would have actually beaten the enemy. Because you have soft feints, they make the gameplay faster, so you have to do more thoughts per second in your mind while playing this game, and that makes this character a lot harder to play than usual. Especially when the full block not being superior block, being in fact a deflect, which doesn't even stop light attacks, you're always on the back foot, so you're always the one that has to think about things. Though I will say, if the enemy doesn't know what you can do, which is most people, and you know what you can do, you can pretty confidently annihilate enemies with this hero, which is pretty fun. So the character is hard to play, but I feel like once I master this, it's going to feel really rewarding. And I'll feel good about myself because the people that just play Varangian, I know they don't have the brain cells to understand what's going on. I know these players could never play this hero, and I know that there's things that I can do that worse players will have no idea of. Sound familiar? Unfortunately, this can lead to some terrible matchups, again, against people with hyper armor, so it's like Gladiator's deflect problem, but because this unblockable is so vital to her, it ruins your entire moveset. But I gotta say, I really like all the things that you can do from Bloody Wrath. If you press heavy again, you get a lot of damage, and the chain ends. If you press zone, you get hyper armor for team fights. If you press light, you deal less damage, but you get to continue the chain. And if you do nothing, she'll throw the enemy forward, possibly giving you a wall splat, which is really awesome. Aside from one thing, you don't get frame advantage if you choose to do heavy or zone, and the damage that you get off of this attack is not that high to warrant this being a thing. So here's the section where I go over all the issues that I could see and how to fix them. So for the sake of efficiency, I'll try to make this section short and clear. 1. The Khatun can feel clunky because of the 2-hit chain. It's limiting when you're teamfighting, clearing minions or pikemen, or when you're soft feinting. To fix this, let her do a last third heavy attack, and if the kick ends up being too strong because of this, and maybe ends up feeling a bit too spammy, decrease the damage on the chain light back to 12, so that you always get 12 damage from the kick. 2. She has terrible matchups against anybody with hyper armor or a dodge bash. Bad matchups are not a thing on their own, but making 2 right reads and getting punished is terrible. To fix this, after she gets a deflect, let her access the kick instantly, for a low damage, yet guaranteed punish. You don't even have to make the skewer pin, you can just let her do a bash. And while you're at it, let her do a quick light when she gets a deflect, in case you wanna do that thing where the enemy is mindlessly pressing buttons, and you punish them quickly with said light, before you deflect again for a second punish. And this would probably also make this part of the moveset way better for teamfighting, which at the moment is really bad. Lastly, feats. Keep the tier 1, keep the second feat, make the tier 3's effect, the fear effect, reapply once you get an execution, so that you don't kill somebody, you get an execution and then the timer's over. No. You kill somebody, the timer begins, the feat gets active, then you execute somebody, and when you finish them, the effect reapplies. At the moment, this feat is kinda weak. And lastly, this is just my opinion, but increase the tier 4 timer to 60 seconds. It feels a bit too convenient for what is essentially a 40 damage option select. People don't really tend to like these I press button, I win feats like Fujio or Aferis tier 3, and this is basically a tier 4 version of that. Not to say that it wasn't a good idea to add a feat like this in the first place. I think it's, you know, relatively creative to do something different like this, but it ends up feeling a bit too cheesy, given that it's 400 MS and you can use it to, again, option select a lot of incoming mix-ups, but that's just me. If you ask somebody else, this feat might actually be weak. So yeah, this is my review for the Khatun hero in For Honor. I hope you liked the video. I hope I didn't forget to mention anything, or... I mean, considering this is just a review a couple days after she came out, it's very likely that months into the game we'll figure out more things about her, more things she can do, and whatever. I'll see you later.